and the next guy wouldn't be suspended. So just keep that in mind. Have yourselves a great day. Game 4 tonight. We'll be all about it tomorrow, plus tons of NFL talk right here on The Carton Show.
They got to go win and execute, and they can't be inconsistent. And that's the thing. It's like Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon really consistent. And then who is that fourth question mark? And there's been inconsistencies throughout. Hey, Michigan goes out to the West Coast and gets manhandled, and then they come back and then they win. Like, who's the consistent one that is the fourth?
The Bobby Carpenter Show, only on SportsGrid.
We're going to have bet tracking for the first time. If you have a FanDuel account, you will be able to track your bet on the Prime Video games. And tonight, if you are part of the ESPN Mega Content Service, we understand from an organization called Antenna that 2 million people at least have the ESPN Mega Content or Unlimited service. You will be able to track your bets also on tonight's NBA coverage. So this is the beginning of a major new era for basketball on television.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Like Marchand said, they're all a bunch of dirtballs, so I fit in with them. You know what I mean? Remember, like, the Phillies baseball team, like with Kroc and Dykstra and all those guys? Like, yeah, they're just a bunch of dirtballs, right? And that's what the Panthers are. They're all the same. Like, they all like to drink. They're all tough. They're all dirty in the corner. You know what I mean? They'll all do whatever it takes to win, but that's why they've won 2 cups in a row.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
For him and Cignetti are the most Spurrier-like personalities, Spurrier-like head coaches, and Cignetti's locked up. And you know what? And Ole Miss could very well lock Lane Kiffin up, but he will always be a fighting under. At Ole Miss, you will always be a little bit of an underdog because who you're playing. At Florida, you don't ever have to be an underdog because of their resources.
The Bowden Blitz, only on SportsGrid.
Ohtani's World Series madness plus the NHL's Frozen Frenzy is here. FOS Today starts now. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today, your look inside the stories that are shaping the business and culture of sports. I'm Baker Machado from FOS Studios here in New York City, and coming up, the WNBA CBA deadline is just days away. We're getting an update on where the talks stand. Plus, Bears wide receiver Roma Dunze is going to join us to chat Caleb Williams and the hunt for the playoffs. But let's start with a wild 6-hour, 39-minute World Series in today's main event. What a World Series Game 3 as the Dodgers walk-off win in 18 innings, tied for the longest game in postseason history. And it was another stratospheric performance from Shohei Ohtani, who reached base 9 times, also a postseason record. So let's head live to Dodger Stadium ahead of Game 4 tonight, where FOS reporter Eric Fisher joins us, who still hasn't slept yet. Eric, you look great. What was the atmosphere like for 6 hours and 39 minutes?
It was surreal. It was one of the best games I've ever been to. But these fans have been in this hole before, so to speak, that I was here 7 years ago for another 18-inning World Series game that Max Muncy walked off against the Red Sox. So these are hardy fans, and they know how to stick it out for the long haul if they have to.
Would you say most of the stadium was still full at that point? Because it seemed like it was on TV.
Yeah, a little bit more attrition than that prior game because that was a Friday night going into a Saturday. Obviously, this is Monday going into a Tuesday, school and work and that sort of thing. So a little bit more of a bleed compared to that one, but still definitely a critical mass in the stadium.
Let's talk ratings here for a second, Eric, because we know obviously the first 2 games rating incredibly well here in the United States, but also in Canada, which we expected, already sort of breaking records there. What can you tell us about what it looks like up north?
Fantastic. It just continues to be a really remarkable story that after setting a record for the Blue Jays on Sportsnet in Canada for the end of the American League Championship Series with 6 million in a country of 41 million, they did 7 million for Game 1 and then 6.6 million for Game 2. More great numbers expected during the duration of the series, but that Canada fan interest really just continues to be a great story for Major League Baseball.
And I think the thing that's the most surprising part, yes, the 7 million is a great number, but that represents 17% of the entire country watching. That's like Super Bowl-esque numbers here in the U.S.
Yeah, certainly we're pretty much talking maybe some divisional playoff games, conference championships, and then certainly the Super Bowl. But that's it in all of American television. That's the kind of penetration that we see in the United States of what's happening now in Canada for the World Series.
Let's talk about Shohei Ohtani. I mean, the numbers he is putting up in this series alone is Marvel-esque. I mean, in his last 13 plate appearances at Dodger Stadium, 7 for 7, 5 home runs, 2 doubles, 6 walks, 6 runs, 6 RBIs. Eric, nobody in postseason history has reached base more than 6 times in a game ever. I mean, how is Shohei Ohtani doing this?
He's just next level, and you just have more and more people talk about him like he's the GOAT, and he's certainly putting up a very substantial case for that. Writ large, just kind of reminds me of the Jordan at his peak in the 90s and kind of the whole lift that the NBA experienced, that even after he was an established champion, winning a second, a third, a fourth time, and like, how can Michael Jordan do even more? Then he went out and did more.
Well, and also he's starting game 4 tonight. Like, is there even going to be enough in the tank for him to be able to pitch tonight?
This is going to be the really interesting thing, that if he's gassed, and he was cramping with all of his turns around the bases at game 3, that if the Blue Jays get to him early and steal this game, the series is tied again. It's definitely going back to Toronto, and they'll have that momentum again. So, baseball's a funny game in the World Series, particularly where momentum can turn very quickly.
And even on that case, I mean, the Blue Jays use every single one of their rostered players, and the Dodgers use every pitcher they had last night in their bullpen. I mean, will any of these guys be able to play on it after what had happened and transpired last night?
Yeah, both teams are going to get out there and they'll be gamers about it, but everybody's gassed, and we're sort of going at half speed, 3/4 of speed, just trying to find their way through. But this is where champions are made. This is where the best of the best really separate themselves, is digging in situations like this and pushing through.
Eric, last time we had you on, when you were in Toronto ahead of Game 1, you told us you still thought the Blue Jays were going to win in 6. Are you still sticking to that?
Particularly if they win tonight, yes. Tonight's sort of the ball game here in a grand sense, that if the Dodgers win and go up 3-1, you sort of feel like the train's leaving the station. But like I said, if they can get to Ohtani early and tie this thing up, my prediction of Blue Jays in 6 still very much in play.
And I guess, does Major League Baseball like when these games go 6+ hours every single night and go until 3 o'clock in the morning here in the East Coast? Is that a win for Major League Baseball?
It's a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, we're all talking about it. It's a great conversation piece. There was so much drama. There's a lot of positive attributes on that side. But having everybody sort of tired and strung out, and, let's be clear, there were a lot of elements of not great baseball last night as players were getting tired and strung out. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah, going to be exciting nonetheless to watch. Game time 8:05 tonight with Shohei Ohtani on the mound. Eric is going to be there. Thanks so much, Eric. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking until the current collective bargaining agreement between the WNBA and the Players Union expires on Friday, with no movement right now towards a deal. This is players like Nafisa Collier saying the current situation with the league should be illegal. So let's bring in FOS women's sports reporter Annie Constable. So Annie, what are the latest right now with the negotiations?
I mean, to your point, there's not a lot of movement that's been made. The expectation, as we've been reporting for at least a month now, is that a deal will not be done by the deadline, which would require either an extension or both parties can continue negotiating without an extension, but that could lead to a work stoppage in the form of a lockout but a lockout or a strike by the Players Union, which would require the union meeting and agreeing to strike the same way a lockout would require ownership agreeing to that movement as well.
If they did do an extension, how long would that extension theoretically be?
Yeah, so a great example is the last slate of negotiations in 2019. An agreement was not reached by the deadline. A 60-day extension was implemented, and both parties agreed to a new collective bargaining agreement in the new year. And so if an extension is agreed to by both sides, which again, that's the issue here, is both sides would need to agree to an extension. And as we've seen publicly, these two sides do not seem to be getting along, Baker.
Very
they do
true.
not seem to be getting along.
Well, especially Nafisa Collier in her comments. I mean, we already know the comments that she said about Kathy Engelbert, the WNBA commissioner, during her press conference. But just recently, she did an interview with Glamour, and she said, quote, "We are being so grossly almost taken advantage of, and it should be illegal." And she goes on to say the amount of money that Caitlin Clark has made the league is insane, and she's getting 0% of it because we have no revenue share. Is the strategy here sort of highlighting stars like Caitlin Clark to show people, look at the discrepancy of how much these people are not making that they should be making here?
Yeah, I think you've got to think about it from a business standpoint. If you're an employee of a business and you're contributing to that business's growth and that business's revenue, but you're not seeing any of that in return, a lot of people would understand arguing for more, and that's where these players are at, and it's just a matter of getting to a place that meets their expectation. And because they're negotiating from so far behind the 8 ball in terms of where the league's been for almost 3 decades, they're making up so much ground, or attempting to make up so much ground in this round of negotiations. And that's where some of that push and pull is coming from in terms of both sides being at such odds here.
And do you also, because the players have so much leverage here, do you almost see a scenario where, you know, we don't get a resolution to this, they go play in Unrivaled and they say, look, this is where we can go make money elsewhere, make way more money in Unrivaled, and this just goes on as long as possible?
Yeah, I think what stands out to me in this round of negotiations is just how dug in the players are in terms of what they deserve, what they need. And when you consider the other leagues that they have available to them in terms of Unrivaled, in terms of Athletes Unlimited, even playing overseas, that still remains as a viable option for a lot of players. They have opportunities that in past negotiations didn't exist, which, to your point, adds to the leverage that they have.
And, of course, we'll check in with you on Friday, the big deadline day. Annie Constable, thank you so much. And coming up next, everyone, Chicago Bears wide receiver Roma Dunze is joining us next. Don't go anywhere.
You just see Texas in any game, and again, Kentucky used to be able to put up points in the past. 43.5 is crazy because it just feels like Texas is going to come in, play really good defense, and try to like squeeze this game out. It'll be interesting to see because nothing got ailed from that victory last week. Texas is back. Like, I'm just being facetious at this point. But if we see one of those performances like, hey, 17-14 Texas.
In the fourth quarter.
Yeah, come on.
Right? I mean, really. I mean, they got a gift last week.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, it looks like the Bengals fantasy pieces are back. What did you make of that Joe Flacco performance on Thursday night? Turning back time.
Yeah, it was great for a guy like me with gray in the beard. I love seeing it. I love my representation. But at the end of the day, just from a wagering standpoint, if this continues, it'll give some consistency and it'll give some value back to those tools that you were mentioning on the Bengals.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Defense is above average this year, and I think big picture, they're going to be probably the most consistent moving forward. The problem I have is this guy, Trevor Lawrence, big picture. You got to take the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly sometimes is real ugly. He is not comfortable in the pocket on a consistent basis, and that's a problem.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Very young team outside of Durant. They're going to be an impossible out in a 7-game series, and I'm predicting it right now. If the seeding lines up, you are getting the Thunder and the Rockets in the Western Conference Finals. There's not another team in the West that's going to be as good as the Rockets are when we get to playoff time.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today. And we're almost at the halfway point in the NFL season, and things are starting to look much better for the Chicago Bears, that under first-year head coach Ben Johnson. And we've also seen a dramatic improvement in year 2 for quarterback Caleb Williams as well. So will we see the Bears in the playoffs? And what do we think the players think of the new stadium that's moving to the suburbs of Chicago? Let's bring in one of the stars of the Bears offense, wide receiver Rome Odunze, who joins us now. Rome, good to have you here. We're going to talk football in just a moment, but let's first talk about your partnership you have with Invisalign.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Got to partner up with Invisalign, their aligners, and it's been great. I had Invisalign, I had my own journey, and it's cool to see everybody's story. And they've been around for 25 years, helped over 20 million people. So it's great to be able to go through that process, and at the end of it, have a great confidence in my smile. Brings confidence on and off the field. So happy to be with them.
And I can already tell your smile looks amazing, by the way. It matters a ton. I totally get it. Let's talk some football here. Obviously, great year so far for you guys in Chicago, mostly with a new head coach here, with Ben Johnson. What has he done so far for you guys that has really turned this season around for you guys that's different from last year?
I think he's just been himself. I think he's very built for the coaching atmosphere and all that it brings. And he's detailed, he's dialed in, and he's focused on the mission of just continuing to get this team better and better. So we follow his lead with all that, and it's been great so far.
Yeah, right now you guys are 4-3. You're in the playoff hunt right now, but this division is so stacked. I mean, your division is insane. What is sort of the next half of the season going to look like it's going to get you guys into the playoffs?
Yeah, no, we're going to have to, go on a streak here for sure. Just seeing the teams that we're, competing against. There's, the best division in football is looking like, for 2 years in a row. So we just got to be on our P's and Q's and go on a run here. So that way, when it's all said and done, we put ourselves in a good position to get in the playoffs.
And what have you noticed about your quarterback, Caleb Williams? From year one, obviously, being a rookie is really, really difficult, especially playing quarterback in this league. But what sort of changes and jumps have you seen him make into year 2 with you guys?
Honestly, I just feel like he's had continuous improvement. That's, quarterback play as a whole, understanding this offense. Obviously, he's being new this year. He's done a great job of understanding the scheme and the system. And then when it comes to throwing the football, being a quarterback in this league, I feel like he's improved, in those aspects as well. So I think he's on a steady path, constant improvement, and I'm excited where he's going.
Well, and how would you also characterize your relationship with him?
I think that's kind of on the same vein. It's continuous improvement for us too, and the chemistry we've had together. We've been able to connect on several different plays this year, make some big plays, and obviously there's room for improvement as well. So just looking to minimize the errors and maximize the successes.
And of course, right now you guys are playing in Soldier Field, but here in the foreseeable future, the Bears are going to be moving to the suburbs in a brand new stadium. Obviously, that's really exciting for all, the nice bells and whistles, but there have been some Bears fans that are a little sad that you guys won't be in the city anymore. You won't have the Chicago skyscape behind you. Does that make you sad at all, or are you excited for this new journey that you guys are taking to the suburbs?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm super excited to have played in Soldier. For me, I leave that, opinion up to fans. The Chicago fans are very faithful. So, who am I to say, where that stadium should be and, where, Chicago Bears fans should enjoy their football, coming from the West Coast. So I let them have that judgment. But at the end of the day, I think regardless, we're going to go out there and put a good product, put Bears football out there on display wherever we got to play at.
I want to ask about, obviously, you were teammates with Michael Penix Jr. when you guys were at Washington, back in college football. What are you thinking about his success that he's had so far with Atlanta? Is it cool to see a former teammate of yours also thriving in the NFL?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's my dog. I look at that every week, see what he's putting up, what he's doing over there, and I think they have a great thing going over there in Atlanta. So it's super exciting to see him have his success. Just knowing his story and who he is as a person as well. And that goes for all my UW guys, my JP, with the Saints, my boy J Mac. Both my boys getting healthy right now, but I'm excited to see all of them shine. Just got to play Roger Rosengard, my tackle from college, who was at the Ravens. So. Shout out to all the UW cats.
Do you ever hope someday maybe you guys will reconnect and play on the same team again someday?
True, yeah. Maybe when it's like year 15 and we're going off contract, something like that, we could hook up. But that would be dope. But we'll see where that goes. You never know.
So I was reading a little bit about, your back history, which is so interesting. Obviously, you were born in Utah. You were raised in Las Vegas. I'm curious to see the growth of a town like Las Vegas right now. For the longest time, there were no professional sports teams in Vegas, and now it seems like it's kind of the mecca of the sports hub right now. Just as somebody who's lived in Vegas, what has it been like to sort of see the growth of that city and embrace basically all these sports teams that you're now seeing come into the city?
Man, it's been amazing. That's definitely, an underrated part of Vegas right now. Just the experience of it prior to that, and now, just being a big sports fan is amazing. Seeing the Aces do their thing when the Golden Knights came in, it was amazing. Obviously, got to be partially a Raiders fan, being from the city. Got the A's coming in, so it's just so exciting for the city, especially after all those years of people telling us we couldn't have a sports team and all that. So now we're proving all wrong, and they're all doing great things. So that's definitely one of my favorite parts of the city right now, for sure.
And one of my other things I love about you is you grew up, going to your grandparents' dairy farm in Utah. What was that sort of experience like? And I'm curious, do you still drink milk, or do you drink like these, almond milk, oat milks now?
Yeah. No, it was a great experience. I feel like, it really just taught me hard work. It's not a joke. That dairy farm work is insane. So shout out to all, my grandparents and all that they did to, put food on the table for everybody. But yeah, no, I drink milk here and there. I try not to drink as much like whole milk like that. Honestly, I feel like got a little lactose intolerance built up, but I gotta enjoy a glass here and there. But I liked all the alternatives too. Almond milk ain't bad.
Okay, because I was gonna say, I would think like an experience like that maybe would turn you off of things like milk from being so close up to it.
Nah, no, that milk straight from the cow. There's nothing like that. That's the stuff that gives you the strong bones. So you got to get you some of that.
Yes, and a good smile from Invisalign, also very important as well. Rome, such a pleasure to have you here. Congratulations on a great year so far. We're rooting for you guys to make the playoffs here.
Thank you, appreciate it.
There's wide receiver Rome Odunze. Thank you so much for joining us. And coming up, Lionel Messi has some advice for Commissioner Don Garber for how MLS can compete against the best in the world. Plus, it's a big day for hockey fans. We got all that and more in the water cooler next.
You see this team, and they're talking about A.J. Brown still. It's an injury. We want him. Are we going to ship him? This situation has to play out in the sense of, I think he wants to be there, but at the end of the day, you can't disrupt the locker room every single week. And the Eagles need him to be there if they're going to make a Super Bowl run.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The playoff matchups for Asher Genty are not great. We start to look ahead. I know it's early, but it's not that early. So Genty, I think, is still a better long-term guy than it is maybe a redraft situation, especially with the schedule maps out. But I don't see a lot of games where he's potentially in a situation where the Raiders are ahead and running the football a ton, if you know what I mean. It's kind of tough out there for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Are they chanting? Is it over? Does
They'll
he
be
accept
gone
the
by
resignation?
halftime.
Are they chanting fire, Brian,
probably.
Kelly?
Yeah,
clap, clap,
it would
clap,
be
clap,
it
clap.
would be warranted. It would be. I mean, you won a national championship in 2019. You're getting top 5, top 10 recruiting classes each and every year. You had the quarterback back to back to back to back. How many more chances are you going to get? I mean, really, what are we doing here?
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Very young team outside of Durant. They're going to be an impossible out in a 7-game series, and I'm predicting it right now. If the seeding lines up, you are getting the Thunder and the Rockets in the Western Conference Finals. There's not another team in the West that's going to be as good as the Rockets are when we get to playoff time.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today. Let's get you caught up on some of the other stories we're following for you over at the FOS Water Cooler. And with that, let's bring in from the control room our senior producer, John Shames, to chat some of these big headlines with me. John, good to see you. How you doing?
Great to see you, Baker. How was your Speakwinox last night?
Oh, it was delicious. We had the World Series up until midnight last night. I had
midnight.
We had
2 a.m.
Well, yes, until I fell asleep at midnight.
It was midnight.
Yeah, yes, maybe Pacific time.
I went to bed in like the 5th inning. It was like 10 o'clock. I was tired. I was like, I'm not going to make it through the end of this. I woke up at 2 a.m. basically feeling like I had a full night of sleep. And then I'm getting notifications from Jeff Passan that the game is still on.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, there is no way.
Well, just days after signing a new contract that'll keep him at Inter Miami until 2028, Lionel Messi told NBC News' Tom Yamas he believes MLS needs to ditch the salary cap and the restrictive parity rules if it wants to grow and compete on the world stage. Messi said MLS clubs should have to have the power to sign players without any limitations. He said, quote, I think that if they were given the freedom, many more important players would come and help the growth of the United States. Now, MLS Commissioner Don Garber has long supported MLS parity rules as positives for the league, rather than the European leagues who are able to spend freely on players' salaries. I mean, what's your take here, Shames? Because, look, I guess there's an argument to be made that we see in all these sports about salary caps. But to Messi's point, if you want to have the best players in the world, you're going to have to pay a ton of money to get them here.
Totally. I think it's a little different for MLS versus some other leagues where, you know, the salary cap in other leagues does kind of promote parity, and that's the idea. But a lot of the times those leagues, especially, you know, the big American leagues, like all the premier talent is already coming there, right? So like it's a little different when you're trying to, you know, for lack of a better word, poach players from European leagues. You want to be able to offer them as much as humanly possible.
And there's always been this argument with a lot of older soccer players that have played in European leagues who come to MLS. It's always been seen as sort of a cash grab for them to sort of come here sort of in their last years. But at the same time, you can make an argument that the salary cap in Major League Baseball wouldn't have the Dodgers and the Mets as sort of the big spenders and the big teams in the league.
But let me tell you this, Baker. People say the Dodgers and maybe not the Mets, but the Dodgers specifically are great for the sport and overall growing the sport, right? So while it might not promote parity to get rid of a salary cap, is it elevating MLS on the global stage? I think that's the question.
Yeah, very good point. All right, well, let's move to ESPN. They're still searching for what to do with that 5 p.m. Eastern time slot on their schedule. That's since the network ended around the horn back in May. But according to a new report in The Athletic, Scott Van Pelt, yes, SVP, has been discussed as a possibility of moving into that slot, that from his current 11 p.m. late night Sports Center, that one that airs right after primetime game coverage. The Athletic says that one plan could have podcaster and former Van Pelt co-host Ryan Russillo join him in that 5 p.m. show. Now, some other names in the mix include ESPN talent Peter Schrager and Brian Windhorst, who was just on this show the other day. The Athletic says that the revamped 5 p.m. Sports Center won't air until next year. So what do you think? Maybe Windhorst, Schrager, or do you want Scott Van Pelt there?
I mean, you can't really go wrong with any of those guys. Those are all guys who ESPN is building around as they, you know, take this big faces model where they try to put their premier talent across the network. I think it's interesting that SportsCenter has a chance to be the program to replace this, because ESPN for a long time has kind of leaned into opinion-based programming, analysis, debate, etc. And now maybe there's more of an appetite where the pendulum is swinging the other way and people just want information. You know, that's a very real thing.
Yeah, and by the way, Andrew Marchand, who wrote this story for The Athletic, said if Scott Van Pelt does get chosen for the 5 p.m. slot, he still could conceivably do Monday Night Countdown, which he's the host of. He might still be able to do some of these late night sports centers. But, you know, look, I'm sure for him, he'd probably take it because he's not staying up until 3 o'clock in the morning every single day.
Yeah, unless the Dodgers go for
yes. And by the way, on this topic, we're all still recovering from the sports equinox last night. But today, by the way, even more bliss for hockey fans.
Oh, yeah. So tonight we've got the Frozen Frenzy on ESPN. It's a night where all 32 NHL teams are going to be playing. Listen, Baker, neither of us are big hockey guys, but we do have some resident hockey fans in the mix. They basically said the biggest game to watch out for tonight is the Pittsburgh game, the Battle of Pennsylvania. But overall, the matchup's not as good as they could be when there's all this attention on the NHL. What do you make of this? All these leagues leaning into rivalry weeks, and it seems like the NHL isn't necessarily doing the same here.
I mean, if anything, tonight could have been a perfect night for rivalry week, but I do think ESPN is airing all of the games tonight on their app tonight, and they have their Red Zone sort of hockey shows with John Butchergrass anchoring that. What I'm more intrigued at is how would a Red Zone, or how does a Red Zone hockey show work? Because I feel like you can't just like go in to a game when it's just, people are just skating. It's not like the NFL where it's like somebody's in the red zone, let's go watch the game.
I wonder if it's like, yes, you can't do that, but I think the NBA is trying to do something similar. I wonder if it's kind of like the retroactive part of red zone when sometimes they miss an important highlight and then they're like, we're going to show you.
It's replay.
Maybe you're on like a slight delay, but you're kind of seeing all the good action. I wouldn't mind that, honestly.
No, but I'm with you to your earlier point. Tonight could have been a great night to highlight all of these rivalries for the NHL, but I'm glad they do nights like tonight. You have to be creative in terms of finding new things for people to watch all the games at one time.